Hi guys, I just want to make a quick short video before I go to bed to follow up on what I was talking about the devil and our destiny. So I was reflecting on that and I was thinking about how, okay, so all of us here on planet Earth right now, I feel in my heart has a destiny, a purpose. But depending on your childhood and different experiences you have throughout your life, and the things that you might have been programmed to perceive or believe about who you need to be, how you need to act, how you need to show up in the world, what makes you worthy and valuable as a person, depending on the type of ideas that you've been groomed to believe, and how that's shaped how you see the world and view yourself. And also like potentially like different trauma, if you've went through any trauma as a child, or maybe not necessarily physical but psychologically, just depending on what you've experienced throughout your life, it shapes your worldview. And often your worldview is based off of the influence of what you've been around. It's shaped your personality and your ego identity to be a specific way, to see things a specific way. But often if you weren't around people who knew who they were according to Christ and God, and know that they're a child of God, and that any other perception that makes you feel devalued or powerless or not enough, that's the devil mentality. That's the shadow of the world. And everybody's got these two personality sides in them. They got this shadow personality, and then you got your pure core essence of who you are, what you were like as a child before you became socially, culturally influenced by everything that was around you. But if you don't become an adult and get it just right, depending on what you've experienced throughout your life, especially your childhood, it could potentially shape your worldview as an adult, where you feel powerlessness, you feel worthy, you feel worthless, you constantly feel like you're not enough, you constantly feel like your value comes from how much money's in the bank account, or how big your house is, or how many women you have, or how many men you have. What you use, the measuring stick that you use to value, or the measuring stick that you use to measure how lovable you are, or whether you're enough or not, or whether you matter or not, it's flawed, because you're basing your self-worth and identity and lovableness and enoughness off of man-made ideas. The measuring stick is from men going back in ancient history that create different criteria, perspectives, perceptions, that if you're not in tune enough to know that life here on earth is more than just being a human being, it's a spiritual aspect to your life, to all of our life. And if you don't build a relationship to whoever your higher power is, you'll run around throughout life and feeling like you're not enough, based off of the ego identity and the personality that's been shaped due to the influences in your life. But it often is faulty and it's distorted. And depending on what you've been told and been programmed to think about yourself and who you need to be or how you need to show up, and what you've been around, it could be so flawed that you have your self-talk become negative. The way you see yourself becomes so negative based off of the influences that you've been around growing up through the years that shaped your personality and your ego identity, but it's distorted. It's not the truth. It's not the truth. Who do God say you are? If you don't know who God say you are and the value you have in his eyes, which has nothing to do with bank account or money or houses, that stuff is nice. But if you don't get it just right, you'll have a negative voice that's so heavy in your head that I was watching a video on Cσ'r. He's awesome. He's like a motivational speaker and somebody who talk about living life from a more conscious, deliberate, intentional place. Cσ'r, he's on YouTube, but he talks about it. If you don't know who you are according to God and according to Jesus, or whoever you believe in, the universe, whatever you call it. We all come from one source, so I don't care what name you give it, the divine. If you don't know who you are and how important you are inherently according to that ultimate source that controls the universe, then your self-identity, self-worth, and worldview will be shaped and built off of the man-made ideas, the man-made beliefs. And if you don't get it right, you'll have thoughts in your mind that make you feel worthless. And as you go through life, it'll trigger you to develop self-destructive behaviors. I understand. So if we're all here and we have a destiny, but depending on what things you decide to believe or how you've been influenced, and the lens that you view the world through, and the lens that you perceive your own self-worth through, if it's not balanced, then it'll create self-destructive tendencies in you or in me as a person, because you're constantly trying to escape the voices in your head that you've been groomed to think is what you need to be, or how you need to show up, or what you need to do in life to have worth, but it's distorted. So then when I say the devil and in your destiny, the connection I'm making is how in the last video I was saying, to me, the devil is your ego personality identity that's been shaped, that you've been groomed and influenced to think is who you are and how and what the world is all about, and what brings you value or not, or what makes you enough or lovable. Well, that ego identity is just something you've been groomed to think these things mentally. So you think that that's all you are. But if you don't heal some of the mindsets that are more toxic or triggering, that make you feel worthless and make a person eventually lead to forms of escapism or self-destructive behavior, or any type of behavior where you it don't even have to be like drugs. It could be just anywhere, not knowing who you are in God, not knowing that you're a child of God and that you matter and you have worth and that it's purpose on your life. If you constantly measure your value up against the man-made worldly ideas, it'll interfere with your destiny, because it'll lead you down the road of having an internal voice that's so toxic. The only thing you can think of to do that you might think is recreational and harmless is self-destructive behaviors where you overindulge in stuff. And eventually it's like a slow suicide. It could be a slow suicide or a fast suicide. But often suicide, as far as like self-destructive behavior, what you're really trying to kill off or silence or escape is the little you, the mentality, the ego identity, that personality. You're trying to kill off the voices in your head. So you have to get a grip on that. Otherwise, you'll get robbed of your destiny. And like I said, to me, the devil is thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, perspectives that you've been groomed and programmed and conditioned to believe and see about yourself and the world around you. That's often a little distorted. So if it's distorted enough to make you think you're not enough because you're not meeting these man-made benchmarks, it's an illusion, and it'll make you get sick in the head and want to hurt yourself, because you'll constantly be thinking you don't measure up, which is the devil's plan psychologically anyway. If you got a big destiny on your life, and the only way to get in front of that destiny while you're here on earth is to make you believe things that are not true about your self-worth and your identity and how you see yourself day to day, if the only way to get in front of your destiny and block it from you is to psychologically oppress you, or to have you seeing your worldview being psychologically distorted in some way, where you have low self-worth behind something that's been implanted in your mind to think about your worth and your value, well, yeah, it's going to interfere with your ultimate destiny, because you don't know who you are enough, and you might do something that might cut your life short unintentionally because you're running from something. You need to heal. So that's what I was talking about. It can be designed that way. So that's why it's important. You have to go somewhere and sit down and be alone with your thoughts and really introspect on what is true. Why am I thinking this way about myself and my worth and value? And is this true? I don't care what your family is talking about or your parents or anybody. If anything, any thought that you have or belief that you have about yourself or your worldview or judgment about yourself that is negative and toxic is devil energy. Because God is compassionate. He got mercy for you. He got grace, because he know a lot of us are poisoned mentally, even if it's unintentionally. So anything that's self-critical that you think about yourself, them thoughts didn't just start there. Somewhere somebody made you think that way about yourself because that's how they thought about their self. And it's like constantly passed down psychological trauma and belief systems and thoughts that are just toxic, that'll get in the front of your destiny, because you'll be constantly ruminating in your head and having thoughts that are so nasty and just self-depreciating to where you'll never meet your destiny. You might drink yourself and kill your liver before you meet your destiny, because of the mindset you have is so toxic, because you haven't realized that it's more to life than to think who you really are. Your core essence is not your thoughts. You're not your thoughts. Your thoughts have been downloaded and programmed into your subconscious and throughout your life experiences, but you're not your thoughts. You've been conditioned to think certain thoughts, but that's not who you really are. Your core essence and who you are on a soul level before you've been culturally and societally influenced is just you're pure love. You're enough. You're worthy. And so I was just thinking I needed to share that, because that's something I realized, because I could see how oftentimes I get super frustrated. And I mean, I've never been a drinker, but I could see how people want to escape their mind, because the pressure that the world, man-made ideas put on you, that you need to move faster, you need to do more, you need to sleep less, hustle culture. So it's hustle culture. That's the mindset that's supposed to be embedded in people, to the point where you self-destruct trying to meet the expectations or the demands or what the world say give you value, which mean that'll make somebody do speed, that'll make somebody do crack because they're trying to stay awake, that'll make somebody abuse ADHD meds, because of the devil influence on our psychology of what we've been led to believe we need to be like, or how we need to show up in the world. But it's flawed, and ultimately it'll take you off this earth prematurely before you can show up into the world and be all that you were actually created to be. It'll cut your life short. It'll end your life. And so that's just something I wanted to share and put out there before I go to bed, because that's just something I've been thinking about, man. It's hard. It really is hard, because the devil, meaning toxic thoughts and belief systems and stuff, is so deeply embedded in our psyche. You can get triggered easy, but I realize triggers and things that make you upset and frustrated are actually just messengers. Anger, all that, it's just a messenger sharing. It's reflecting back to you something you need to heal, because it's something that you believing about yourself that is not, don't have anything to do with God. It's some kind of a faulty belief you got that's influenced by the world, the psychology of the world, the agendas of the world. And the reason you're getting frustrated is because it's misaligned. It's your mind, your brain, and your heart and soul is misaligned. They supposed to be on one accord. And so that's just something I wanted to share. So I'm gonna go to bed and just know, you guys, I might be rambling, but I'm tired. It's about 3 a.m, but it's something I wanted to be sure I share, because it matters. And it's just something to think about. You gotta question your thoughts, questioning the stuff you've been raised to think. Like, is this true? Like, you have to be willing to ask bigger, deeper questions and find time to go on your own truth seeker journey. Otherwise, what is it? It's like you going through life unconscious, like the Walking Dead. Like that's what that is, like the Walking Dead. You alive and you walking around and going to work, but you are dead because you're consciously not. You're living your life unconsciously. Everything you do and think and the stuff that you feel matter is dominated by subconscious programs that don't have nothing to do with you. It's people who programmed your mind to think and believe certain things, and if you don't question it, you won't even know you have unhealthy behaviors or beliefs or toxicity that's shaping your viewpoint or judgments of yourself or your worldview. You won't even catch it because it's running the program of your brain subconsciously and got you doing stuff, and you don't know why you self-sabotaging, or you don't know why you crave something that's unhealthy or whatever it could be. So it's just something to explore. So good night. Just like, share, subscribe if this was helpful, even if it was just one person. This is something I just wanted to come on here and speak from my heart because it was something I was reflecting on. And hopefully I said it clearly enough. So talk to you later. Bye.